republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. A little short-handed this evening. A couple of members are absent. But we shall carry on regardless. Item 10, approval DPW. I see Rachel and Brian are here. Correct? Come on up.
Hello.
Hello. You get some more grant money for us, did you?
Of course I did.
All right.
So I'm here for an approval and an update, but first I was asked to announce that we posted there's a trash and recycling delay this week. Trash is going to be on Friday. Public Services is closing their operations tomorrow, so every town is on a one-day delay.
Very good.
And next week as well as Friday, because Monday's a holiday.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
We'll send lots of reminders. Okay, so first things first, I'm seeking approval for Phase 2 of the Town Hall EV charging station. Back in 2020, when we first had our station proposed, we had kind of a 3-phase project, and it started with 2 stations, then another 2, and then potential up to 4. And there's this lovely drawing, I don't know if you have it in your binders, but this is a John Sanchez original with some highlighters on some graphing paper. So the orange is what exists today, and we'd be adding the 2 yellow spots right now. So we applied for the same grant that we did in 2020, and it's called Mass EVIP, and it's a PAC grant, and that's Massachusetts Electric Vehicle Incentive Program, and PAC is public access charging. So we are guaranteeing that people can come charge their vehicles 24/7. There's no code to get in. It's a public parking lot. And part of this was designated one of the spots as ADA compliant, which we did in Phase 1. So there's not a lot of infrastructure on this one. The first time the infrastructure was over $120,000 that we got complimentary through Eversource, which was great. So this time it's more of buying and installing the station. We already have the conduit run in anticipation of this Phase 2. So the total project cost is just over $39,000. The grant was just over $37,000. The part that's not covered is 5 years of maintenance and repairs to the station by the installation company. And they did our first one as well, and that's Voltrek, is the name of the company. So I'm just seeking approval today for us to install that second EV charging station.
Very good. Jim, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rachel, when we first did this, we set rates. Do you think those need to be revisited? That was 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, so I kind of looked at them recently. We heard that there might be a new Massachusetts law passing where it's going to be in favor for hosts of EV charging stations, because currently we do pay a lot more than we thought we would in electricity. So our electric bills for the station last year was $2,900. We got back about $1,300, so we still paid $1,600 for the full year. So Brian and I have been discussing, do we want to revisit, change the rates, and see what's around, what other towns are doing as well in their spots. So I'm kind of seeing if any law is passing by maybe July 1, that's like their happy date of passing new laws. If not, then I think we should definitely revisit.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Jim. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rachel, do we have any idea on how much these charges have been used out there, or how often? We have any data or?
Yeah, so I printed some graphs. I don't know if you could pass them down. So this is the fiscal year, and it's every day of the fiscal year, and it shows you the users. So we had over almost 600 sessions of usage last fiscal year in FY23, which is pretty impressive. Just September through January of this year was 170 sessions, which is about 34 a month. And it takes, people are usually there about 3 hours. That's how long they've been spending to charge at the station.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. I was having the same question. Actually, I'm a little surprised that demand is more than I thought it might be. Not that I'm here every day, but
Yeah.
It's
Paul, you
really
must see.
interesting from visual standpoint. I think at the beginning, the station doesn't show up on a lot of digital maps and things like that, or apps, but once it gets out there on the apps, it's not uncommon to see 2 cars charging at once on a regular basis out there now. So I would say from the time it started till now, the use, just from a visual standpoint, and I'm going on weekends too, they're in use as well. So there's quite a bit of usage from what I can see with my eyes from being around the building on a regular basis. So they're definitely,
Good to know.
yes.
3-hour charge, what are they, walking over the library or something, or are they walking around the common, or?
I do think it's a lot of people who are walking around the common. I found it interesting that you can see that on the chart I just sent you, there's kind of a dip around the holidays. And sometimes even the weekends, there's less usage. So I think people come during the work week and charge either while they're at work or they walk around the common on their lunch break. Usually around lunchtime, I see a lot more cars than in the morning or at night.
We have a couple of employees charging as well, their personal vehicles while they're working.
All right, well, keep an eye on those rates, make sure we're adequately competitive anyhow. All right, anything further? Motion to approve the charging station?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, what do you got next? What's next?
Okay. Next is just an update with some great news. So you all know I'm very involved in green communities. We became designated in 2020, and we had 5 years to reach our goal of 20% reduction in the town's energy use. And as of the end of fiscal '23, we're at 18.5% of that 20. So by the end of this June, we should be there. We just completed 2 projects at Town Hall and Town Hall Annex, ripped out all the old insulation, made it tighter space up there, and put in new insulation that's compliant with the new stretch codes. So that's going to be a lot better, you know, air quality, keep the cold air out when it's winter and keep the warm air out when it's summer. And as a requirement for green communities, anytime we're about to do a big HVAC project, we have to do weatherization first, whether it's installing the door sweeps or, you know, making the windows tighter with those strips or the insulation. And we do plan on doing a HVAC overhaul hopefully pretty soon. It's been on the warrant that we keep shifting around for a couple of years now. You'll see it again this year on your budget books. So not great annual savings, but it'll pair along with the HVAC project pretty well. So probably about $2,000 saved there. We're also working on, outside of green communities, we got a grant with the DEP actually to do a project at Mill Pond. We weatherized it already. We had an infrared roof study done. We're going to repair the roof to Mill Pond, and then we're doing our first PV solar array on the roof of Mill Pond, and that's going to save us $18,000 a year in our electricity savings. So with those projects combined, we're really not worried about hitting that 20% by July 30th.
Good news. Always good news when you visit us.
A ray of sunshine.
I try.
Gentlemen, any questions for Rachel regarding the green community?
Great job, that's all.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Rachel, thank you.
Okay.
Always a
Thank you,
pleasure.
All right, thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Right. Item 11, approval. Town Clerk Amy Warfield's here. You get a couple of 3 items to chat with us about? Yep. Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's just 2 things that need approval, and then one is a discussion. With the acts of 2022, we're now required to ask the selectmen to please charge that the police chief can set up officers or constable for the elections. And so that's something that always in the past, I just worked with the duty officer to set up, but it now needs to just have your approval that we can ask the police chief to have some officers at all the elections.
Who's gonna make that ask? It comes from your office, or does it come from ours?
Comes from my office to you guys. So if we can just have a vote on that, and then I can submit that to the Secretary of State that we've done that, handled that properly.
Paul, you got anything to add to that?
No, we've been obviously providing police coverage for elections for many years, and then recently updated the regulations to make it a more formal question asked of the board.
Gentlemen, Mike?
No issue.
Jim?
No issues.
Okay, there's a recommended motion in the backup,
Oh, okay.
I believe.
I can read that. if
You
like.
got it, Jim, in front of you?
Yeah, I make a motion, we move to approve a sufficient number of police officers, but not less than 2, at the polling location at every election therein to preserve order and to protect the election officers and supervisors from any interference with their duties and to aid in enforcing the laws relating to elections as required by Section 72 of Mass General Laws, Chapter 54, which was changed in Section 13 of Chapter 92 of the Acts of 2022. Further, move to designate the police chief or their designee the authority to assign specific police officers according to scheduling and availability. The town clerk will advise the police chief or their designee on the location and time of the officers needed.
Ooh, thank you for the
Second.
motion. And there's a second. Anything further? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
300.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Now,
The second item is just that I need to have your signatures on the warrants for the presidential primary, which is on March 5th. Yes, thank you. And that for the town election, which is on April 6th. And just signing off on that so that those can also be posted as required by law.
Okay, that paperwork's in the office, and I
Yeah.
think the three of us have signed that. So you don't need to vote on that, right? Just signatures tonight?
No, I just need, basically, your signatures on it is proving that you're allowing for us to have elections.
Okay, that's done, and Lynn will get to the other two fellows and get their signatures for you. Okay, and so the discussion on debt exclusion is listed on here tonight. I understand you're going to maybe give us background or options for us to
Want me to start
consider?
off, Amy? Mr. Chairman, I invited Amy here tonight. Obviously, as the board is aware, we got 2 major capital projects in the upcoming year, police station and the Fox Hill School. The administration would recommend that financially that the town pursue both of these projects through the debt exclusion process, which would require, in addition to a town meeting approval, an approval at the ballot by the town's registered voters. This particular year happens to be a very, very busy year for elections, so it's not as easy as just picking a date and deciding that we're gonna have another additional election. So what I wanted to do, we're not looking for any decisions to be made by the board tonight. We just wanted Amy to come in here and talk about both of the options that she sees as possibly the best dates in the fall for us to hold this election. And she can probably talk us through a little bit of the pros and cons of either option. So that's why we're here tonight again. We will have to decide on an election date at some point in the future. But for now, we just wanted Amy here to present a couple of options for the board to think about in terms of the election.
Okay, very good, very good. What are you thinking?
Well, and this also coincides with when those votes might be taken at town meeting, that probably at least the Fox Hill building vote would be taken at the September town meeting. So kind of coinciding with that, as well as with the meeting of when the Mass Building,
Mass School Building Authority.
thank you, the Mass School Building Authority meets, is that we're probably looking at the fall elections. Because elections now take about 6 weeks in terms of having vote by mail and early in person, it would probably be easier for my office if we coincide it with one of those 2 fall elections. The September election usually has about a 50% turnout of voters, and the presidential elections, we usually run about 85, 87%. And there are some nuances as to why one might be better than the other. The primary election, we cannot put, well, actually, because of the Mass School Building Authority, it has to be a separate ballot. So we would have to run for either of these elections a dual election. which means 2 sets of check-in tables, and we can use one tabulation machine to tabulate all the votes, but it's basically a 2-step process. So we need, it's like running 2 elections at once. We need double the workers, that type of stuff. And then for the November election, one of the other things, actually, we still do have to have a separate ballot. So it would be 2 separate ballots for both of those times to run it. So it's just another thing to keep in mind. The other thing, I already talked to my Ways and Means Subcommittee and told them that, again, a town election costs between $25,000 and $30,000, so that's going to increase my, the special accounts budget for the fall for 2025's budget as well.
What election falls in September?
That's the state primary.
State.
So this year, this calendar year, we have 4 elections. We have the presidential primary, which affects the November election, but in September, we have the state election, which also is going to feed into the federal and state offices that are on the November ballot. And usually for state primaries, we get, again, about 50% turnout.
Michael, question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this is going to be a fun year, I think, especially for you. I had a question. I know we have these 2 major projects. The police station, we're hoping to come before town meeting in May to request funding. And as I understand it, Fox Hill is going to be in September. Would it be a problem for you to run 2 debt exclusion votes at the same election if we choose to go in that manner? Nothing has been decided.
No, because they can both be on the same ballot. It's just 2 separate questions will be on that ballot, and then the primary ballot would be its own ballot, or the presidential election would be its own ballot. So we can put 2 questions on the same ballot.
And with regards to Fox Hill, is there an order in which town meeting or the debt exclusion vote has to go, or can they go in either? Because there's a date conflict there, right?
It can go in either order.
Either order.
So the town meeting approval can come first, or the election can come first. And both would be legally allowable, so.
So, because I guess I had it wrong. I thought that that 2/3 town meeting vote authorizes it to be put on the town election for the debt exclusion, but they can go either way.
It can go either order,
Okay.
correct.
And I know we've talked about this, Paul. When is the deadline to decide for the police station on how to fund it?
Well, we'll have to decide officially, Ways and Means will have to decide what motion they're presenting to town meeting as we work our way up until May. So typically, the motions are done one of the last items that we'll do. So when we discuss that item at town meeting for approval on the funding, at that point in time is when I understand that discussion would occur.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, you're very welcome. Jim?
I have nothing, Mr. Chairman.
All set? No, I don't, I have no questions at this time myself, but,
Actually,
We'll
no,
get some-
sorry.
yeah, okay.
How are you staff-wise? Do you have enough, I would say volunteers, but workers?
Yeah, well, we probably will do, like we did last year, we had a very good intern that came in, and he will be available back for the summer. So we probably will include that in. We have a pretty robust staff of the tax work-off people this year who are very good, and they're doing a lot of the, preparing of the envelopes and all of that type of stuff for us. So we'll just continue with that. But again, that's one reason why I know that I'm going to have to put some more money into the budget. I may need some additional staff for, especially the presidential election, to just get all the mechanics done. The other thing is, again, with vote by mail, one of the things is the cost of postage. And so that will be something that we'll be working on as well.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there one or the other, as far as a state or presidential election, that works better for your office for, one, potentially two debt exclusions?
It's kind of hard to say because it's going to be, when it comes to things like the prep ahead of time in terms of vote by mail and early in person, the state, we currently have over 3,000 postcards back that we're sending out vote by mail ballots to. The state will be sending out another round of postcards. If people have not requested vote by mail by the law, they have to send another card out. Those will come out in the beginning of July. So we'll see another influx of cards. It will all depend on, again, like your questions about, well, what election is in September? About how many of those we have to actually mail something out to in September, as well as in November. So that's just an unknown right now. I mean, either way, it's kind of handling and processing all those cards. And it's hard to say, will we have to actually just log them in, or will we have to actually be mailing out to people?
And all that postage is a town expense, right?
Yeah.
Has since we've kind of gone to vote by mail, and has that affected now we're in budget season, affected your budget with more postage, with more ballots being mailed out before the election?
Well, I've just been putting that additional funds into the special account.
Okay.
So that's another reason, and again, it's why an election now costs between about $25,000 to $30,000. You got to include all of that in as well.
Okay, thank you, Amy.
We have been eligible for some state reimbursements
Yeah.
on some of those costs.
Yeah, because vote by mail is considered an unfunded mandate, we are getting a certain amount of state funds back. The other thing is the state Secretary of State's office has very graciously offered, I had put in money to rent a high-speed scanner that allowed us to process the early ballots ahead of time. And the state has, our Secretary of State's office has come through with a grant for that. So we'll be able to actually purchase it for the price that we were going to be renting it for. So they're picking up a part of the lease, and we can purchase it we just have to pay the purchase price to buy out the lease. So that's another thing that I've found some money for.
Very good.
Amy, just one more thing. Could you
Yeah.
please just inform the board sort of how the notification process goes on a debt exclusion vote? That somebody will be requesting that the board call for an election and the different timeframes?
Yeah. So if we're going to be calling for the election, there's about a 60-day process for being able to prep to get ready for that vote. And that includes what I have to do in terms of the mechanics of getting a ballot set up, getting the ballot to the printer, getting it proofed and getting it handled, and then notifying voters about it. So if we were looking at the election date of September 3rd, that would mean about July 5th, we'd have to start, a decision would have to be made that we're going to go with doing the debt exclusion vote on that day. If we're going to go with the November date, that puts it to the September 6th to be able to get that underway.
Who ultimately makes that decision on which one we go with?
Well, you all are the ones that sign the warrant.
Okay.
So, I mean, it would be a kind of a collaborative in terms of what works best in terms of, whether it's gotten on to town meeting and where that, what that question was worded as, and were we going to be doing the Fox Hill, the school at September town meeting or what, so.
We hope that there's plenty of collaboration well in advance so that we can sort of decide on a date way before any of those deadlines kick in.
I
So
think you're going to need some collaboration well in advance, because July's really not that far away.
Absolutely.
They'll bun you pretty quickly.
Fun year.
Yep.
All right, anything further, gentlemen?
Nothing.
Michael?
Nope.
Amy, great to see you again.
Well,
Thank you for the
Thank you
update,
very
Amy.
much for your time. Appreciate it. And look forward to, working with you guys on this whole process.
Great. All right, item 12, citizens' time. Is there anyone in the room here for citizens' time? Good. Otherwise, I can't see behind that big screen. Is there anybody here? No?
Nope.
No, okay. Anybody online that we're aware of?
Nope.
I don't see any hands, okay. Okay, item 13, approval, St. Mark's Church.
Mr. Chairman, we have, I believe Miss Raymond is in the audience as
It's
well.
online, okay.
Online.
All righty. If Lynn could make sure she's unmuted, if she's going to participate in the conversation. But at any rate. Hi.
Hello?
All
Good
right.
evening.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I am Reverend Andrew Harris. I'm the minister at the Burlington United Church of Christ Congregational. Me and my family moved here to Burlington back in August. We are so happy to be members of this community, and we're grateful to all of the civil servants here for all that you do. We're here to talk about, to ask approval or permission to have a processional on Palm Sunday. That's March 24th of this year. That would take us from St. Mark's Episcopal Church up to the UCC Church, 0.7 miles up Bedford Street, to celebrate Palm Sunday, which kicks off Holy Week, the holiest week of the year in the Christian calendar. We've already spoken to people at St. Mark's and the Burlington Presbyterian Church about collaborating, and we envision this being open to anyone who wants to participate in this processional, whether they're Christian or have no faith at all, or are just interested in seeing, learning more about the Christian community here in Burlington. And I know on the permit that Deb Raymond submitted, it says 150 people. I mean, that would be a minister's dream come true to have 150 people at this thing, but I would expect a much smaller number than that in actuality. And it would take as long as it takes people to walk 0.7 miles up that hill. So about half an hour.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe, yeah, depending on how fleet of foot our walkers happen to be.
And Deb, do you want to talk more about the whole program? Say who you are and where you live.
My name is Deb Raymond. I am the Christian Ed Director at the United Church of Christ, where Andrew is. There's really not a lot to it. It's a procession. Hopefully people
We're going to have palms. We do have a mini horse that's going to lead it, just like it would be in Palm Sunday. So we envision people just coming and walking up the hill and celebrating, and not much to it.
Similar event at a different time of year that goes up and down Wilmington Road that's been rather successful in the past. So,
Nice.
are you going to, once you get to UCC, is there going to be, you're going to hold an event there or something? Or
I would think we'll probably have a gathering, maybe. Our church loves to eat, and so maybe we'll have some baked goods or something, maybe say a prayer, and then have people disperse. It won't be a major event because every other house of worship, including us, is having a worship service that morning. So this is sort of tacked on an event for families and for whoever else wants to celebrate the day.
you mentioned, funny you mentioned you may have something to eat there, because I see Deb's email caught my eye. It says it's Angel Foods at MSN.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know, does Deb have some sort of a secret talent? Okay.
That's why we eat so good at our church, because of people like Deb.
Nice.
Thank you for noticing.
Gentlemen, any questions?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, do you plan on using just the sidewalk or the street? I mean, because logistically, the sidewalk would make things a lot easier for everybody.
Yep.
That's what we're envisioning. We
Talked to the woman with the mini horse, and she said, yep, that's perfect. We went and checked it out. There's all beautiful easements there. Thank you to the town of Burlington.
So I'll be limited to the. The other
That's what
thing,
we envision.
okay, rain or shine, I would assume, because Palm Sunday is Palm Sunday.
Kind of rain or shine. If there's a snowstorm or if the weather's really bad, we'll cancel it.
My last question is, will there be a second person with the horse, if you know what I mean?
That was one of the things that they stipulated with the horse. I know that my son would be overjoyed to have that job. Yeah.
Clean up crew.
Yeah, cleanup crew. Deb already volunteered, but I don't think we'll make you do it, Deb. But we'll have someone do it.
You never know.
I'm good for now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mike?
No issue, Mr. Chairman. Sounds like a wonderful event.
Yeah, I think so. I think so as well. And welcome to Burlington, by the way, and it's
Yes.
a pleasure to meet you this evening.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have no issues. I don't think the,
No issues at all.
kind of a motion then, Jim? You mind making a motion?
I don't mind at all, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion, we approve the St. Mark's Sunday processional from St. Mark's up to the United Church of Christ across from Simon's Park.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There you go. Good luck on that.
Good luck.
Thank you
Nice
very
meeting
much. I'll see you next
Doesn't
time.
have
Thank you.
snowstorm or something. Deb, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
March, you never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. All righty, item 14, we have an appointment to the audit committee. Paul, you want to start us off on this one?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The audit committee is appointed directly by the select board. The town administrator is not involved in that one. We do have a candidate who previously participated on the committee, Ms. Florence Leone, and for some reason, her renewal, she's not applied to be reappointed to the committee, and she reached out to us subsequently after she saw the appointments in December and asked if she could be reinstated to the committee, and I know that committee is always needing members, so we would graciously support the board's approval of that.
You've got some wonderful credentials here on the application. You guys all seen. Mike, you need anything?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Questions? Jim, any questions?
I worked with her before on the audit committee, I think she'd be fantastic, she is fantastic on the committee. It's just a reappointment.
All right, then, I'll entertain a motion to...
Make a motion to
appoint.
reappoint Florence Leone to the audit committee.
Motion by Mike, second by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
300. Okay. Thank you, Florence, for coming back to that committee for us. All right. Budget approval time. Actually, John,
Yes.
you gonna run with this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You can see we have some eager department heads in the
Yes, I
audience
know.
ready to come up and go through the gauntlet. But before they do, I just wanted to take the time to just go through the slides quickly from the two budget kickoff meetings we've had so far. Back in January, we had the guidelines, or what we call the budget summit. And Member Espaillo was there with us, so he can feel free to chime in too. But what I'd like to do is just kind of quickly go through those slides. There's copies of those slides and the slides from our budget overview with the Ways and Means. So I won't go through all the details because everybody's had a chance to look at them and see the two presentations, but so the way we start when we go through our guidelines at the budget summit is we sort of show how we ended the year. So this slide is sort of an illustration of the budget process that you guys have heard me say this so many times, that starts a year before that, when we're doing our meetings in the fall and into the winter, and then we go through town meeting where we appropriate the money, and then it's not till six months later when we come and set the tax rate and we actually have the ability to get that money. So the last year's budget, this is where we wound up with the tax rates from everything that was done. So this is just the impact on FY24, as you can see what the tax rates were, what the values of a single-family home is, which is the benchmark that everybody uses for the tax rate, and then the average single-tax family in the increase. We usually go to the financial indicators, which kind of just tells you where we stand with free cash that was certified last fall, through earlier than ever, through our diligent work by our fine town accountant who's here with us tonight. You can see that number. I'm not going to say it scares me, but you can also see that what was proposed and eventually approved at the January town meeting. You can see the stabilization number and the excess levy capacity after the tax rate was set back in December. That number, for those that don't know, is basically the amount of taxes we could have raised under the levy limit, but we didn't, based on what our budget came in as. Our budget goals, you're probably sick of hearing us talk about this, but is always to try to maintain level services where possible. You know, we have a town that expects a certain level of service by us, which makes it such a fine place to work and to live. We prioritize our investment into infrastructure. We all know what can happen if you take some time off, not making those investments. It really catches up and costs you a boatload of money. In the future, we want to minimize our fees to the residents wherever we can. Things like, you know, we're very lucky to not charge fees for athletics or for taking the bus or for throwing away your trash, things like that. Always one of our goals. And we want to be able to adjust our plans for long-term liabilities for things like OPEB, pension liabilities, and now, as we talk about it, debt service for quite a few buildings that we're talking about building. We roll into our assumption and effect. So this is sort of our overarching assumption we use when we first start talking about the budget. One thing we point out, we have been for quite some time now, or the last 3 years anyway, is that the local receipts took quite a hit in COVID when the local economy took a hit. We were able to use $500,000 from our ARPA money for 3 years, so a total of $1.5 million to help revenue replacement on those local receipts. This is our last year of doing that, so in FY25, we need to absorb that into our operating budget. And we need to, you know, we're able to finally talk about adding back some local revenues as our economy continues to recover. And we'll get to more of that in some slides further. So we want to, you know, we always like to project accommodated accounts at a realistic number and not be artificially high or too aggressively low. We said operating budgeting increases, you know, based on our budget goals, and to control the tax levy increase every year, we have a goal of trying to hold that between 4.5% and 5.5%. Our budget driver is just a list of those. You can see, you know, everybody, what our 5-year average has been. You know, everybody knows that stuff costs more. Our budget hasn't increased enough to keep up with inflation over the years. Things like utilities and fuel and personnel costs for the current union contracts and any potential adjustments to the non-union folks. We need to be cognitive about that. As you can see, level service, and you'll see in some more slides, is you know, more than 4.5%. Accommodated accounts, the usual budget drivers, I don't think we need to read them. Everybody knows what they are. They're the same every year. The good news here is last year when we were doing this meeting, we were coming up on an expiring trash contract that was going to be quite a hit to us. We had a very favorable contract which was expiring at the same time that the state approved, the state OSD, who approves contracts for the state, had approved a significant increase to special ed tuitions. Those are for students that attend school at private schools outside of the district. They hadn't increased that at the rate of inflation throughout all of COVID, and sort of it was a catch-up year for us. So that was sort of the perfect storm to us, and our accommodated accounts increased significantly more than we were used to. For local receipts, you know, good news here. You can see what our 5-year average is there, pretty much flat. But we're projecting, you know, that we could add back and have a 10% increase in that area. That includes making up for the $500,000 we're not going to be using from ARPA. So good news there. We're trending in the right direction. You know, hotel and meals tax and permitting continue to outpace projections year over year. State aid is something that, as you can see for us, is you know, about 3%. There was a big increase when they first instituted the formula change in Chapter 70. We had $1 million increase a few years ago, so that artificially skews what our 5-year average is. But at the time we were having this discussion back at the beginning of January, the governor hadn't put out their budget yet, and since that has come out, we have some good news in the local aid area, so things are looking strong there. And then in the tax levy, again, we try to aim for our target of between 4.5% and 5.5%. You can see what our 5-year average is, right smack in the middle of that. So what we talked about during those meetings was a few different scenarios. We settled on a number of about 7% for accommodated accounts. As we get through the slides from our budget preview, you'll hear that we expect to come in under that, which is great news. But to use that as our guidepost for that, we were talking about what different town and school operatings, how that would affect. And on this chart, you can just see on the far right what the increase in the levy would be based on those assumptions. And then sort of as a thumbnail, 1/4 point on operating, or 0.25% on operating budget increase is about $263,000, and that would add about 0.2 to the levy increase, just as a thumbnail. Eventually, what we came out of that meeting was consensus was to move forward with a operating budgeting target of 4.5%, a target of 7% on accommodated, and that was estimated to bring the levy increase at about 5.25%. I think we'll be lower than that when we finalize the numbers. That was at our budget summit. I'd like to just briefly go through the slides from a month after that, when we came to Ways and Means last week to do our initial drops into passing the budget, that book that's in front of you there. What's included there is within the guidelines. That's the town budget is within that 4.5%. It's actually 4.75%, 4.47%. So we'll take some credit for being under. That's what we would call level service-ish. Pretty much level services. There's some that may argue that it's not quite, but I would say it is. What's included in there is all the collective bargaining agreements. We have union contracts for next year, for FY25. It will be the final year of 3-year contracts for all of our unions. What's not included in the department's budgets themselves is any change to the A&P contract. But it is included in the budget, and that is in negotiated settlements. So each year, because our administrative professional group isn't an actual union, we fund it through negotiated settlements. We have an additional warrant article to transfer the money into each of the departments. School budget hasn't been approved yet. It's still a little early for them. They're probably another month away. They have some obstacles to get to their guideline number, but I know they're working hard on it. In the accommodated accounts, we had set 7 as a higher limit. We target somewhere between 6 and 7. We're not totally done yet. There's still some, debt service tweaking we need to do. We'll need to finalize the employee benefits line now that Gary's back from traveling the world. He can do that now. And then we're still probably a little bit away from our special ed tuition and transportation, and those are the big ones for us. Those accounts very volatile. A move in and a move out can move it quite a bit. So we're still probably a month away from that. But good news in that area. I think we're all going to be happy when we finalize that number. List of departments that are over the guideline per se. Most departments are within. There are 6 cost centers that aren't within the guidelines, but several for good reason. You can see the smaller budgets there. It's kind of comical when you look at the percentages, and you see. I'll talk about disability access because Chris is going to be here tonight. You say, what is he doing asking for an 18% increase? But it's $175 annually. The budget is so small that it's over, and all it is the rate that we have to pay the person that takes the minutes is increasing. So little things like that can affect those smaller budgets. Same with the Board of Register of Voters. And then you see the 3 departments that are submitted over guidelines, and they can kind of go over those. I won't steal their thunder. Another important thing in here is there's no additional headcount or FTE in this. Same existing as this year. One thing we will have to work on is we've dedicated through ARPA, and we can do so again for half of this next fiscal year, money directed towards mental health, both at the Youth and Family Services and at the police station. And when we first talked about increasing hours in both of those positions and using ARPA to fund it, it was, give us a couple of years to see, if we really need this. Well, I can tell you that need isn't going away. The ARPA funded might be, but the need isn't going away. So those those additional hours will be, for half a year, are absorbed into the budget that we're submitting. Another thing that is WebEx, what we're watching right now. That need isn't going away. The virtual meetings are going to be here to stay. We've been paying for that, $10,000 for that software license for several years through Opera. We'll do so again this year, but that will be going away. Nominated accounts, we talked about, but you can just see why those budget drivers are so big is, things like OPEB is, it's $1 million annually for us now, so 10% increase on that's a big number. Middlesex retirement is $14 million, so a 7% increase on that is quite a hit. Debt service is $9 million, health insurance $17 million. So although the numbers aren't, the percentages might not be that big, it eats into what we have each year. In the bottom line, as I said before, we expect we're going to be probably in the lower half of our range from 4.5 to 5.5, that levy growth. So we're hopeful to be under 5, so that'll be good. We have been over 5 for a couple years. So I apologize for speaking so fast, but I wanted to be able to sort of go through those slides just to put some perspective. I know you have them there. But I'd be happy to take questions on that, or we can move on to some of the departments.
Questions, Mike? Anything?
Actually, I do have one, Mr. Chairman. What happens if a department can't hit the 4.5%? What is that? What's the process there? Do they go over, or how does that work?
Yeah, so the 4.5 is the town side total. So it's all the departments
it's cumulative.
blended in. Yeah. So there are many that are under. Most are under. And then for those that can't, because they're mostly personnel or for whatever reason, it's just it nets out against those that are under.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Jim, questions for
Thank you,
John?
Mr. Chairman. Not a question, just a comment that I'm so proud to have a financial team like you, Gary, Julian, and Paul, that can pull all this together, stay within guidelines, and still allow us to lower the tax rate, even though taxes went up because of the value of the houses went up. We're still able to run this town, as you said, no fees, athletic fees, no additional fees for trash. We're able to do with our day-to-day functions, but it's not because of us, it's because of you, Julian, Paul, and Gary. So just thank you for that, and your staff.
Thank you. But we'll say that 4.5% guideline, I can see the pain on Chairman Runyon's face is higher than it's been for a while for operating, and we're very cognizant of that, and we know that won't be sustainable over the long term, and we continue to work hard at that.
Piggybacking on what Jim said, the expectation too of services, people have come to expect a wide amount of services that they don't get in other towns, and it's always a balancing act. It seems like I'm learning each year through this budget process that, keeping the level of services but also watching the bottom line is that it's kind of a fine line we walk every year. It's interesting.
John, you mentioned Opera several times during your presentation. Where are we with that, and is there a date that we have to use all that by, and is that approaching quickly?
Yeah, so it's the end of this calendar year, you have to obligate the money by, and then you have to spend it. Our plan is to do that this spring. We've been talking since we got the money about using it strategically and then using the bulk of it to keep some things off our debt plan, so water and sewer projects specifically. So we expect to be back this spring to get the final approval from this board to do that.
Okay, all right, I thought there was a time certain we had to use it or lose it. All right, eagerly anticipating, come up here and talk with us. You want to go in the order, how did we have them listed, John?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, conservation?
Yeah, if we can start with conservation, I think what we've been doing the last few years, I've sort of given you the high-level overview, which is also in your notes. You know, to hopefully steal all the thunder from the department heads, and they don't have a lot to say. So we'll start with conservation and Mr. Keeley. The high level, like I said, is in your notes. You can see that their budget for FY '25 submitted at just under $320,000, for a very small increase of 0.9%. And you know, you can see in your notes what that is. The head count, no change in head count projected for the department, but I won't steal all of Mr. Keeley's thunder if he has anything to add.
Okay, Mr. Keeley, anything to add
Thank
to
you.
John's summary?
So some of the interior numbers are a little different, and the reason for that is there's in the past I've been paying the seasonal workers and the part-time workers out of special accounts, stream cleaning and land management, and I've just moved all those into the part-time salaries. So the land management and the stream cleaning accounts are very low numbers, and they're strictly for the equipment and materials and the gasoline that the workers use. But all their salaries are now being paid out of part-time instead of those accounts. Everything else is basically pretty much level funded, and the small increases just from some step increases and also cost of living.
All right, gentlemen, any questions for Mr. Keeley? Michael? While I have you here, I understand that you're going to be leaving us soon. So while I have you, I want to thank you very much, John. I've gotten to know you pretty well over the past dozen years or so. You've always done an outstanding job for the community. Your dedication to your job is palpable. It really is. I see it every time I talk to you and every time you're here in front of us. And so I just want to take this opportunity to, again, thank you and wish you the very best in your retirement years. Enjoy them.
Thank you very much.
Otherwise, I'm very happy with your budget.
We'll try to drag him back one more time for the full board. He doesn't like a lot of accolades, but he certainly deserves them. I mean, I think the greatest credit you can give a department head is we never have any issues with conservation issues. So John's always been handling those professionally, dealing with the public professionally, and like I say, he causes, we have very few problems related to conservation issues, which is a credit to John, his staff, and, you know, his commission, so.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, John.
Agree.
Thank you very much.
All right, John, thank you for coming in tonight.
Motion to approve?
I don't know, do we need to approve these?
Yeah, so up to you if you want to do them one by one or at the end.
Well, let's take this one while we're here. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the conservation budget.
Second.
And second, all in favor?
Aye.
3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
John.
Good night.
John.
Mr. Hannafin, you're next.
While Chris is walking up, I'll do the same and just sort of give you a high level. Chris actually has two cost centers in your notes there, the Veteran Services Department and also overseeing the Disability Access Commission in the Veteran Services, which is 543 in your books. You can see that the budget for FY '25 is just over $293,000, which is an increase of 1.56%. No head count change, and contractual increases for the union position only. And pass it on to Chris.
Yeah, I think the only big difference between last year and this year is the state has finally got back to, I shouldn't say the state, the federal government has finally gotten back to in-person appeals for VA decisions. So for 3 years, we were all doing them virtually, which didn't require me to go into Boston at all, which was kind of nice. To tell you the truth, I prefer the in-person appeals. Gives a person's face to a claim, and adds a little bit of a personality to it rather than the way that the VA has been handling it for the last 3 years since COVID. But that does mean anywhere between 1 and 3 times a month, heading into the JFK building with a veteran to fight on their behalf for VA appeals. And there's just melt costs incurred in that.
Okay. Paul?
Mr. Chairman, Chris, can you just talk to the board a little bit about sort of what drives the aid to veterans line? I know sometimes we have to increase that line, sometimes we're decreasing it. What are you sort of seeing in terms of aid to veterans at this point in time, in this juncture?
So what you're not seeing here in regards to the budget is probably what takes up 80% of my time, and that's VA-specific federal stuff. And there's a slight decrease in state benefits because there's a little bit of a benefit from pushing people from the state to federal benefits. Number one, it's easier on the veteran or the surviving spouse because once they get approved by the federal government, that's it. They never have to touch it again. Whereas the state budget with Chapter 115, they have to go through the reapproval process twice a year. And the state has significantly higher or stricter guidelines than the VA does in regards to what they can spend their money on. So my goal, at least in the last couple of years, has been pushing our Chapter 115 recipients, which is a cost to the town at 25% of the budget. And I'm trying to move them from the state to the federal VA program. That'll reduce the cost to the town in regards to what they pay out for Chapter 115. Right now, Chapter 115 benefits are projected at $112,000. The state reimburses 75% of that, as long as we do everything that we're supposed to be doing, and I haven't seen anything that would show otherwise. But at the end of every quarter, although I don't know when the last time the state actually paid you guys. They're pretty slow with how they do it, but 75% of what we pay out in checks comes back to the general fund.
Interesting. Gentlemen?
Just one quick question. When you said that you have to reapply twice a year, just explain what that means?
The initial, so we're going through recertifications right now. It's supposed to happen in the beginning of the year. A veteran or a family member needs to come in, and I'll just give you a few of the pieces of information that they need to provide. Last 3 months bank statements. They need to provide all mortgage and income statements, any type of life insurance policies or any changes in financial situations. Let's say you have an elderly person that wants to go on a reverse mortgage. That's going to change someone's financial situation drastically. So that's the reason why the state mandates that we go over it twice a year rather than just once a year, because something can happen drastically over the course of 12 months. If a person happens to go on unemployment, or if a person happens to go on workman's comp, all of that has to be compensated for in the twice annual recertification processes. It's kind of a deep dive into people's personal financial situations as well. Yeah. It is very awkward.
It's unnerving to hear that, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's fortunate, actually.
Well, that they have to go through this
Yeah.
twice a year.
Mike, have you got any?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Paul?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to take this opportunity to thank Chris and Jen, his assistant, for the wonderful Memorial Day and Veterans Day programs that they put on for the town every year. I think they're some of the best ceremonies around, and I know how much work and effort goes into that, and we get nothing but compliments from the community for both of their ceremonies. So I just want to thank Chris and Jen Goldsmith, his assistant, for all their efforts in relation to those two ceremonies.
Actually, Jen she did a great job notifying us, and sadly, about all of these half-staff notifications that have been coming in this year, the last couple of years. Actually, it seems like there's every couple of weeks or something, there's sadly another unfortunate incident where we're on it. But yes, thank you both.
Thank you.
The whole office is right on top of everything. I get nothing but good things from my circle of veterans friends.
Thank you.
That you know quite well, actually. Okay, How about a motion to approve the Veteran Services?
I make motion to
Budget.
approve the Veteran Services budget as presented.
Second.
Second by Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and Chris, you, the Disability Access Commission is also your budget.
So, Mr. Chairman, just the overview, as you can see, it went up by a whopping 17.6%, which was $175. You can see the budget is less than $1,200 annually, and what it pays for is the person that does the minutes for that group, and that rate changes, so even at the same amount of hours, it's still gonna cost a little more.
Questions?
Again.
Chris, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'm not particularly happy about that number. As you know, I like to cut it as much as possible, but.
He's not kidding.
So I know we approved some spending from the collection of parking fees this year. You want to just maybe just name one or two of those projects for the folks that...
Well, I'd like to put some credit on Mike. He sits in on our meetings, and we had seen a drastic drop in handicap parking fines being issued almost since COVID. And it's something that we had been tracking a lot, and Mike sat down with the chief, and I don't know what the chief did, but we went from just seeing a drop, and I'll give you an example. 22 handicap parking tickets were written in all of 2022. To put that in perspective, just this year alone, from January to now, they've already written $22,000 worth of handicap parking fine tickets. So I'd like to thank Mike for talking to the chief, and then also the traffic supervisors have taken it upon themselves to really dig down deep, and the officers, especially the ones in the traffic supervision section, are doing a really good job of not only writing tickets, but they're documenting them so well that in the appeals process, hardly anything's going to the district court because they're taking pictures at all angles, they're writing statements. Burlington Police Department is really doing an upstanding job in regards to writing the tickets and putting in the backup work as well. So I'd like to thank them.
People just, I guess they just don't get, when you first said 2023 was pretty quiet year for that, I was thinking to myself, gee, people are finally getting it, but now 24 is a different story, back to their old habits, huh?
Yeah, a lot of it is actually the DoorDash and the Grubhub. They're using those. Yeah, I get to see the appeal, so they're quite comical sometimes.
Sure. Anything further?
One thing I'd add, Mr. Chairman, what the Disability Access Commission does, it's my subcommittee, and thank you for the kind words, Chris, but it's mostly the police who've put an increased focus on enforcing the handicapped spots around town, and that's such a doubly good thing because, number one, gets people to stop using those spots that aren't supposed to. And another great thing about DAC that I've learned that a lot of people don't know is they take the money from those fines and violations and they apply them towards things that help people with disabilities, like some sensory events that the rec department runs. They also help fund the upgrading of the town website to be accessible for people with disabilities. So there aren't many win-wins in life, but the things that they do at the DAC committee, I love going to the meetings and hearing the good things they do. So it's doubly good. So thank you to Chief Brown and all the officers who are giving an increased focus to that, and to the people on the committee who really look over these proposals, and this money really goes to good causes, to people who have hardships that a lot of us don't even have to deal with. So it's all good stuff. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Jim?
The only comment I have is I get prodded, poked for saying piggery, but apparently doubly's a good word, is a real word as well. So,
Yeah,
so that's doubly good.
doubly good.
I have no comment.
I know this isn't necessarily the time or place to do it, but there is one thing that Disability Access has been talking about, and that's potentially increasing the handicap parking fine funds. Hasn't been touched since 1999. There are surrounding communities like Waltham and New Bedford that are increasing them. So it's something that the Disability Access Commission wants to bring to the selectmen. Our only hesitation right now is the amount of tickets that have been already purchased that have the fine number on it. So once we start to see those dwindle down a little bit, it is something that we'd like to come to the town to potentially increase that fine.
All right, Chris, thank you. Motion to approve the Disability Access Commission budget.
So move.
Second.
Second, and all in favor?
Aye.
3-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Good
Thank
night.
you, Chris.
Hi, Joanne.
As Joanne walks up, I'll again give the highlight. As you can see from your notes, that the human resource budget is $810 more than last year. That's part of it is a product that both staff members in our HR department are A&P, so they're not in a union, so their contract, so any salary increases are included in that. And that number sounds low for two folks that do such a fine job, and part of that is that Joanne's salary is actually split percent-wise, not even 50-50, but with the school department. So a portion of her salary is charged back to the school department and not included in this budget. So every year when we come here, we tell you that, so there's no change in head count, and every year we tell you that we have the conversation with Joanne about how they do it, how they can cover that amount of employees with just a few folks, and do we need to add resources to that? And we had that conversation again this year, and Joanne can fill you in on that. But stay in the course. So, anything to add?
Yeah, thank you. Well, continuing on with that, thank you very much. We do service all of our town departments, including the school department employees, and we partner really well with all of our department leaders, payroll, benefits. These are things that aren't handled in the HR office, so we do work really closely with those departments. Our school principals are wonderful. They manage their schools very well. Our department heads are wonderful. They manage their departments very well. So at this time, we totally have the bandwidth to cover what we need to cover. Things are going really well. The main drivers in the budget for FY25 for us are, they are the administrative fees for conferences and memberships that are always going up every year, so minimal increases in that. And in recruitment, we're very intentional in where we recruit, where we advertise, try to be as effective and as efficient and low cost as we can be, but target the right people. Everything comes with an expense, though, and those expenses I've looked in the past few years have been creeping up and up and up. So I do think that we need to put a little bit more money in that account. And we are starting the recruitment fair train again this year, so to go out and about and bring our show on the road. Those expenses as well. They're really minimal, but I do think that's important.
Great, thank you. Jim, let me start with you.
Thank you, Jim. Joanne, I don't mean to put you under the spotlight here, but overall, how many employees do we have townwide?
We have about 800-900-ish between town and school employees.
How do two people handle all that? What is your secret?
I don't know, we've got good people.
I agree. I mean, that's incredible. That's all I need to say, Mr. Chairman. That's incredible.
Yeah, it actually is. Mike?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I want to just pile onto that. We're very lucky to have that you handle both the human resources, both the schools and the town side, and take care of all that. I don't think that's pretty common in other municipalities. I think they have separate people that do both. And I was going to say, did we start with all the all-stars? Everyone's under 1% here. This is going to be an easy budget season, right?
Yeah.
Send us up, Mike.
Yeah, right. Thank you for all you do, Joy.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your support.
Welcome. Businesses across the country are having trouble filling their vacancies. Are we finding we having the same sort of issues here, or are we pretty much fully staffed currently?
It really does depend on the role, to be honest with you. The more specialized the role, the harder it is to fill. A lot of our entry-level positions are a little easier. I can tell you we've had some administrative assistant positions open in the last couple months. We have 70 to 90 applicants each for those positions. So we're very fortunate with that. But then again, our specialized positions like Board of Health, public health nurse, it's really hard to fill. Our local building inspector position's been open for a while. So we have a few positions that we've been struggling with, but we want to find the right person, so we're going to keep it open until we do.
All right, interesting, good, thank you. Guys, I'm fine with this. If you have anything further, otherwise we'll entertain a
Mr. Chairman, I
motion.
make a motion to approve the human resources budget as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
3-0-0. Okay, Joanne, thanks
Thank you,
for coming
Joanne.
in tonight.
Mr. Chairman, as Marge makes her way up, she gets the prize for the night. She actually has a budget that decreased year over year. You can see the totals there. It's the same head count this year going into next year. And there was a retirement of staff, of a very senior staff member replaced with someone brand new. So that's what drives the decrease. And we're lucky enough. We walk this tightrope every year where Marge panics that the formula grant is getting cut because we do use a portion of that money. We earmark, more than a third of it to pay for things from the operating budget. So that also helps keep that budget number down. So about $30,000 that is used to pay for things like weekend van drivers, an additional person over there greeting people, and some program stuff. So. I'll pass it off to Marge, but she wins the prize for coming in under budget.
So the formula grant covers our receptionists who answer the phones, part of the van drivers, our part-time social worker, who we don't have at the moment. We've lost another one. That is an unbenefited position, and you may see that next year. I'm coming in differently. We actually, I was looking at the funding sources, and between gifts and grants, we have $255,000 that we bring in towards the department for resources. So we're a little bigger than we look on the town budget paper, on the piece of paper. I did bring in 2 grants from the state, which are ARPA funds, this year. One is for digital equity, which is it's really focused on getting seniors doing telehealth. It's really about medical care for them. But they've given us a very broad brush for it. So what I've done with that money is we've bought iPads with cellular service, and we have a computer teacher and tutor who is we were supposed to start tomorrow, which obviously isn't happening, with classes, and the teacher's gonna get, hand them the iPad, get them all, teach them how to turn it on and go from there, all the way up to getting on their portal on My Leahy chart. So we're excited about that, and the seniors are really excited as well. And I also brought in another grant from the state, also ARPA funds, and this is all from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, for equipment for the conference room and the flex room upstairs for hybrid programming. So we're kind of continuing what we were doing. Representative Ken Gordon had gotten us an earmark, and by the time we got to doing the project, it had more than doubled in price, so we couldn't do the whole project. So we're continuing that now. And of course, the prices keep going up. So the longer we wait to do anything, it just keeps marching up. We are looking for a new social worker. If anybody knows of anybody who wants a part-time, unbenefited social work position, 19 hours. We're having a lot of trouble getting. We've had 3 candidates, and all 3 are not qualified. So it's going to be an interesting little march. The social workers are super busy. Housing, health benefits like fuel assistance and SNAP, mental health, just, sometimes just holding somebody's hand, just talking to them. Someone's lost a spouse after 50 years and trying to kind of adjust to living alone can be a long, long process for them, among other things. Excuse me, outreach, my activity person is doing really well. We're like super, super busy. I don't think the numbers are really like fully back yet from COVID. I think some people are just not wanting to come in, but once we get the hybrid programming up fully, that'll be, hopefully we'll fix that problem. But yeah, but like really just busy, crazy busy.
Gentlemen.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I was going to ask you about the participation rates, but you just answered that question. And again, such a small staff affects so many people in this town. You guys and girls do a phenomenal job.
I'm sorry?
You do a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
As the population ages, you'll be taking on more and more, and you just somehow, you and your staff just somehow figures it out. But thank you.
We don't have a choice.
But
Thank
that's
you.
it, Chairman.
Michael?
Another all-star decrease of 1%. How are you doing, Marge? Is the senior prom coming up too? Is that?
It is coming up April 4th.
Oh, thank you for all you do. We're lucky to have you and your
Thank you.
team. You do a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of help from our friends up there at COA, Leahy Hospital being one of the major contributors to a lot of the programs we run up there. Our Shine workers and Wendy Guthrow and others that volunteer and help out. So we're certainly fortunate in that regard, and that we don't have to go out and hire staff to do a lot of those things. So Burlington's people tend to step up here in town and support us, particularly our seniors. No, budget's fine. I can't argue with the budget. Paul, anything you have to add?
No, I just want to thank Marge. I don't want the board to get accustomed to negative decreases with her. Hers are typically on that outsider list of high budget increases, but I mean, the demands upon her department increase, every year they go up in terms of what services are needed over there, and she's really done a great job of managing with, quite frankly, very limited resources. So I give her and her staff a lot of credit for all the work that's being done up there. And I visit every month for coffee, and it's probably one of the favorite things that...
The highlight of your month, is it? Yeah.
Highlight of my month, dealing with the folks that come by to share their issues with me is a lot of fun.
It is. It actually is.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Okay, if there's nothing further, I'll entertain a motion to approve COA budget.
I'll make a motion to approve the COA budget.
Second.
By Mike, second by Jim, all in favor? Aye. 300.
Thank you, Marge.
Thank you, Marge.
I have transportation still.
Oh,
Yes.
It wasn't.
No?
didn't-
Okay, we're good. Mike, if I may, because I think this is the last meeting I'm going to have with you before you are no longer a selectman.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I know I'm going to see you like everywhere and all the time, but
Wednesday and Thursday this week, actually.
but I just want to thank you publicly for being our liaison and doing a really good job of supporting us.
Oh, well,
And,
it's always, working with the seniors has always been high on my priority list, and I've enjoyed the time.
Good, because we were very happy to have you and very lucky to have you. So.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Hard
that.
shoes to fill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks, Marge.
Thanks, Marge.
Thanks, Marge.
Well, Mr. Chairman, last but not least, we have our town accountant, Julie Dellis Reyes here to talk about the accounting budget, special place in my heart. You can see the only increases there are for contractual changes. There's no requested increase in any of the expense lines, and the head count is the same, so. I don't want to steal Julie's thunder, but there's not a whole lot to talk about there.
Well, we'll toss it to you anyhow. Good to see you tonight, Julian, by the way.
Nice to see everybody here. Just like our accounting's budget is relatively simple, like our expense lines are just level funded, and then our salary line just has an average of 3.14% increase. Yeah.
Okay. Guys, anything?
Just real quick.
Yeah.
Thank you for being one of the team members that makes us look so good. So just thank you for everything you do, you and your staff, and the whole team.
No, thank you, and to my two predecessors, Paul and John here, for keeping the accounting so clean, and I always have a good practice.
Oh, good. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Julian, you've been with us, what, a year now?
And half.
Year and a half, and how's it been going so far with you?
So
Everything
far,
good?
so good.
Good?
Yeah, everything's good.
You getting everything you need to do?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Because our audit always, it's always very clean and always have good comments from our auditors, and so everything's very smooth.
Awesome. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I have nothing to add. Entertain a motion to...
I'll make a motion to approve the accounting budget as presented.
A second.
By Jim, second by Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
0-0. Well, there you are.
Thank you, Julian.
Thank you.
That went pretty smoothly.
Easy, Chair.
Member Espaillo commented about the All-Stars. One thing I can say is all of our department heads are All-Stars.
Oh.
We've worked in 5 different districts, towns, and I can say it's the finest group of department heads.
Wow.
in this town.
Thank you. Nice of you to say, John. And finally, item 16, discussion on Mount Hope School. Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll put an agenda item on for discussion this evening. We're not expecting any answers tonight. We just want to put the thought into the board's head that this is something we should be thinking about. We were approached by Pastor Rick Picarello from the Mount Hope School. As the board is aware, the Mount Hope School leases out the town's former Meadowbrook School to run their operation out of. It's been a wonderful arrangement for the town for many years. They've maintained our building extremely well down there, and the way the lease works is the town pays for all the major systems in the building, and the school handles all the day-to-day, week-to-week maintenance and upkeep, and I can just say that they've done a fantastic job. Their lease is coming up for expiration approximately 7 years from now, in August of 2030. Obviously, Pastor Rick has a vested interest in just sort of having an idea of what the town's intentions are for that moving forward. And I told him that we would bring this topic up for discussion with the board, and they're doing very well. They have approximately 350 students, of which we believe approximately half of them are Burlington residents. The school is very popular. They're actually looking for more space currently within the town. They would love to stay in Burlington. But he's approaching us so early in the process because obviously if the town decides to go in a different direction in terms of whether or not to renew the lease, I know we have significant discussions upon space needs. The town's bursting at the seams in terms of space. So my understanding from talking to Pastor Rick is they're just looking for enough advance notice so that they can scout out a new location here in Burlington, well in advance of the expiration of the lease. So again, I'm here to answer questions. We're not here to make any decisions tonight. We're missing 2 members as well. We can arrange a tour of the school for you folks if you wish to go down and check it out. Again, great people down at the Mount Hope. Every time I'm invited down there, I just see a wonderful community. They hold church services within the facility, and I see a lot of local Burlington town meeting members participating down there as well. They built a great athletic facility that's part of is a leasehold improvement. So they have a basketball court and a gymnasium facility that was put in down there. And again, in my discussions with Pastor Rick, they're just looking for enough of a timeline. If the town wants to renew the lease, great. If the town wishes to take the building back for a different municipal purpose, he just needs enough time to try to scout out a new location. And he made it clear to me that their intention would be to stay in Burlington. In addition to that, I reached out to Superintendent Conti for him to engage a discussion with the school committee to give us some feedback on the renewal of the lease, just in terms of how, let's just say, worst case scenario, if the school was no longer there, what would be the impacts on the Burlington school system in taking some of those students back in. if that was the case. Again, all indications that I received from Pastor Rick are that the school's healthy, happy, and very successful, and they're actually looking for opportunities to expand the school. So my gut feeling would be that they would, make significant efforts to relocate here in Burlington if the board were to choose not to renew. But again, at this point, I'll open it up for questions from the board, and we can, begin the discussion. We can put it on a couple of future agendas so that we have a couple of opportunities to discuss it. We're 7 years in advance of this, and Pastor Rick just wants to know far enough in advance so that they can take appropriate action depending upon what the town wants to do. So with that, I'm not sure if there's any other info I can provide or.
Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nick and Brendan Egan and I did take a tour of the facility with Pastor Rick maybe a week or two ago. And before that tour, I really wasn't that familiar with Mount Hope. So I asked friends who have had their kids go through there for, early elementary and nursery. And Burlington's very fortunate to have Mount Hope as a part of our community. They have an outstanding reputation as a regional, younger, I think they go now K to 6, school, a private school. Everyone I've talked to around town with kids there now or who have sent their kids through, just a great experience, very positive reviews. Some of the teachers over there, are familiar from Burlington schools, like Mrs. Banal, who everyone knows from Fox Hill, is over there, one of the familiar faces. And we took a tour of that school, and I was very impressed with the facility, the new Youth Life Center that Paul mentioned, where the basketball court is. And I have to tell you, walking through that school, I went to the old memorial. It was the one level, and it's the old Meadowbrook School, as everyone knows. It felt like a time warp going back into old memorial. It really, all my memories from elementary schools came rushing back. And they've done such a nice job of upgrading the building. They've done, just recently in the past year, 2 of the staircases, granite staircases going to the front of the building and the side of the building. And they've really done a nice job of maintaining it. So the building's in great shape, the classrooms are in great shape. All that said, initially my thought was, because of the space crunch that we have here at Town Hall and offices, getting that property back would be really, really helpful with some of our future needs. And going to go a little bit off the topic here, trying to think long term. I really believe we need a new high school here in Burlington. I know for 11 straight years, the school committee applied to the MSBA for help, and they were denied 11 straight years. And then we shifted to the Fox Hill and were accepted on the Fox Hill. And I have to credit school committee member Martha Simon for still pushing for the feasibility study for the high school, and they've gone ahead with it. Now they have the building committee. In my experience last year as a parent to the exchange kids, just going around to the local high schools, it seems like every high school in the town in the area has a new high school. Our high school, it's
We're kind of getting off topic.
All right. So this is where I was getting at. Sorry. In watching those meetings, I'm just so excited about the high school. In watching those meetings for a future high school, one of the things that would help the cost driver of building a new high school would be taking out some of the departments that aren't essential to Burlington High, like central office, BECC, and BCAT. And taking Mount Hope back could be potentially a landing spot for some of those areas and help us with potentially a high school down the line. So as much as I love having a Mount Hope here, I would be in favor of, isn't it 6.5 years until their lease is up?
Approximately.
Yeah, I would be in.
August 2030, I believe, is the expiration date.
Yeah, I'd be, as much as I love having them, I would be in favor of taking it back. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Michael. Jim?
Just real quickly, I always hear positive news coming out of Mount Hope as well. I did tour that school years ago in my prior career, but if we can arrange for a tour, I'd love to go see it again.
Absolutely, it is.
That's about all. I'm not gonna discuss more on that. I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Yeah, in the not too distant past, one of my grandchildren attended the school for 2 or 3 years over there. So quite familiar with, their ability to maintain that property and actually expand. You point out the sports center over there that they built at their own expense. They've been great neighbors, an incredibly diverse student population over there. Yeah, I mean, they've been great neighbors. I don't know what our needs are gonna be in 7 years, so I really don't have an opinion on that. I'd like to see them remain part of Burlington, if they could stay where they are. Great, but I think, kind of premature for me to even speculate whether or not we need that space yet. I think we need to do further research on there, but they've been great neighbors. I think it would be a shame to lose them, and I would, think long and hard about what what our needs are going to be in the future and what direction we should go. And I agree, Pastor Rick should be. I think it's wise of him to reach out in advance. 7 years creep up on you pretty quickly, especially when you're going to possibly make a potential capital investment like they may have to do there. So, but anyhow, I think they've been great neighbors. That's all I have.
All right, so we can put that on for another future agenda.
I think we
maybe
probably
for
think the other guys
more
should,
detailed,
we need to talk further about, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to, speaking of our space, obviously we need to hear, have we undertaken any sort of space needs assessment, or, I mean, a real deep dive into what our current and future needs are going to be?
No, we have not, but certainly there is enough time for us to, if the board wishes to do so, we can certainly get something before town meeting in May.
I don't need it that soon, but just something I think maybe should be on our radar.
I mean, we had, over the course of time, done various studies on municipal property, and I think as the board knows, just in terms of property, we don't have a lot in terms of municipal property.
We have a lot, but a lot of, I still have the list that Paul provided us with, and most of them are, it's less than a half an acre and things like that, but no serious municipal, usable space here in town.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, the space behind the Meadowbrook School is interesting as a future spot. We did take a look at it in terms of the police station. It's a pretty good piece of land behind the school along the high school driveway there. We would have to figure out some access. I think there's some wetlands in the area, but I think there's a good chunk of... there is some wetlands in the area, but I think the actual piece of land was a pretty good size of usable land back there that could be, something for the town to consider well off into the future to site some type of municipal facility back there as well. But yes, I think we'll throw it on at a future meeting. Again, you compare and contrast the Meadowbrook School to the Wildwood School. As everybody knows, the Wildwood School was sort of shut down and not utilized as a school. And it deteriorated pretty rapidly to the point where the town had to tear it down. So
it doesn't take long once you abandon a property like that. Mother Nature takes over, and
yep,
doesn't take long at all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thanks. I'm glad. Yeah, it was a good time. Good. We start talking about this now. Some thinking to do. Approval, item 17, approval minutes from 12/11/23 and 1/8/24. Any omissions, errors, or comments?
No, we're fine.
All right, have a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from December 11th, 2023 and January 8th, 2024.
Second.
And second by Jim, all in favor?
Aye.
3-0-0, unanimous. Subcommittee reports, gentlemen? Jim, anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, the fire department for the month of January, 475 calls, but of that, 314 were emergency medical calls, either BLS or ALS, but that's 3/4 of their calls were related to medical issues. Of those calls, they responded to 5 cardiac arrests during the month of January And last week, one of the survivors that they brought, that survived one of those cardiac arrests was a 78-year-old gentleman who was removing snow from his driveway, who went into a cardiac arrest, and he was brought back by the Burlington Fire Department. He visited them last week to thank them, which, with snow potentially for tomorrow, would like you to check on your neighbors and see if you can help them if they need snow removal, especially if they're elderly. I know they're sidetracked a little, but 5 cardiac arrests is a lot. I mean, anyway, they also had one partial house fire where it was in the kitchen and it worked its way up. They were able to suppress that rather quickly. And the days of January 7th to January 8th were, because of the weather, their average amount of calls, they have an average amount of calls they have on a daily basis. But on January 7th, they went 23 weather-related calls above and beyond the norm on that day. And on January 8th, 15 calls weather-related above and beyond the norm. So they were stretched pretty thin. According to the note I have here, that week was a busy, busy week. So kudos to them for handling all those issues in addition to the, I don't want to say normal volume of calls, but they did. And they responded to Woburn twice to assist with a fire and to man their station. And then they also did the same. They responded to Lexington and Billerica for the same. But the unknown talents, and this is what I like to do this report, the unknown talents that we have in town, members of our fire department were sent up to Newbury and Byfield for a high-angle rescue attempt. And that's the talent with it that we have in our own department, to go that far out to assist another agency. So that's the fire department. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for putting on their Black Tie Gala a week ago. That event, sponsored by the Chamber, brought in over $200,000 for charities here in Burlington and the surrounding area. And that could not happen. $200,000 given to these charities could not happen if it weren't for the business community. I know some people complain about the number of businesses we have, but look at how many people are going to get help because of some businesses in this town. You can't say $200,000, over $200,000 is a lot. But in that event, I just want to highlight a couple of the businesses that helped put this together. The presenting sponsor, Herb Chambers. The platinum sponsor was Reamer Bronstein, and the Cafe Escadrille, who is an exceptional partner and helps many, many charities locally in addition to this event. And none of this could have happened without Rick Parker and his staff putting it all together. So thank you, Rick, the Chamber, thank you all the sponsors, and hundreds of businesses participated in this event. And the last item I have is Leahy Clinic has invited us, this board and town department heads, to their White Ribbon Day on March 7th. It's a Thursday at 9 a.m. in the auditorium. White Ribbon Day is the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. So they've invited us to participate, as well as surrounding cities and towns, to attend that event.
What's the date again, Jim?
It's March 7th. It's a Thursday at 9 a.m.
Great, thank you.
And that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two quick things. The police station building committee's third meeting was scheduled tomorrow at 10 a.m. and has been rescheduled because of the weather, and town hall being closed tomorrow to Thursday at 1 p.m. And speaking of which, tomorrow everyone be safe in the snow. I hear Burlington schools are closed, so everyone enjoy the snow day and look out for your neighbors and don't shovel. The DPW put out a thing today not to shovel snow into the street, and check your storm drains. And as Rachel mentioned, trash collection is being moved to Friday this week and next week also because of the holiday. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Mike. I have nothing tonight. Paul, have you anything further?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to state on television for the folks that are watching at home that Town Hall and town facilities will be closed tomorrow. Governor Haley had requested that all non-essential employees to stay home from work. We abided by her call for that. We are anticipating plowable snow, but at the same time, I think the weather forecast keeps changing here, so fingers crossed, everybody be safe tomorrow, and Town Hall will be closed, and town facilities will be closed for the day in addition to the schools. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Paul. John, anything? No, very good. Motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned?
Second.
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you, everyone.